Okay, so we are all here today because we have a new and upcoming line that is going to impact everyone that's here today. So this line has been in the works through SWMBA and through Ask Family Services of Kalamazoo since I believe probably about June. So it's been in the works for a really long time. SWMBA was grant funded some money, a large sum of money because of COVID. And so they had come up with a way to use this money by providing this service of answering a phone line for COVID related situations, problems, concerns for any family members. It could be for peers. It could be for anyone in a household that's being impacted by COVID. So I sent everyone out an email that kind of explained a little bit, but not very much, because we've just been gaining knowledge as we've been participating in trainings ourselves on how this was going to be developed and how it could work. So this is a brand new phone line, right? It's being marketed by our marketing director, Sarah Mead at Griffin Place, as well as Ask Family Services of Kalamazoo is also marketing this brand new number. So as you drive around, if you're local to Kalamazoo, you may see a banner that's been put up. You may see billboards that are advertising this new peer warm line. So this is what it is, right? So this is the phone line that everyone's going to be answering. This phone line is going to be available 24 hours a day. So it's a warm line and it's for anyone and everyone. And so it could be somebody that just wants to call in and talk. So we have multiple different things that we can do with these callers. So we can only imagine and estimate how much productivity that this phone line is going to bring to us. We have no idea how many people are even going to know about this phone number. We're really hoping that our advertising and marketing has gotten out there to multiple people so that they can utilize the service. However, we don't know or have an estimate of how busy this phone line is going to be. We're assuming that it's going to be a very slow start and we're not going to get very many phone calls. However, the start date for this phone line is November 1st. So that is next week, Monday. So hence the reason we're talking today. So on November 1st at 8 a.m., that phone line will go live. What will happen is we're going to give each one of you this skill because this phone line is going to be operated 24 hours a day. We feel like it's very closely related to crisis work, and we feel like it's very closely related to stay well work. So that's why you're all here. So what's going to happen is the phone would ring. It would come in on this new skill that we're going to give all of you. And you would document this phone call in a new system, in a new form that we've created. So we're not going to use iCarol. We're not going to use Staywell's, is it Odessi's system. We're not going to use that because that's going away too, right? So we're going to use a new form that we've created. So this form, this training today is to kind of talk about how we're going to document those calls and where you can find out information if you have questions about when these calls come in. Although you can reach out to any of us because we can help answer those questions as well. So those phone calls come in. Let's say you receive a phone call and they don't really seem like they're in immediate crisis. They just want somebody to talk to. That sounds like a warm line call, right? So that call would be transferred to Ask Family Services. Ask Family Services is going to be available to answer this cell phone that they've provided us with from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. We can still transfer those calls at any given time, and that caller can leave a voicemail with Ask Family Services at any time, any hour of the day. And that Ask Family Services will give that caller a call back within 24 hours. So their needs are being met because they're not in immediate crisis. They're just looking for someone to talk to about their concerns or problems that are going on. Well, if you get a call and it's a little bit different. The person is calling, they seem like they're in immediate crisis. They're utilizing that phone line for the same reasons. We're going to handle that call as a crisis call. So if you're a stay well worker and you don't feel comfortable with someone that's in immediate crisis, you can transfer that call to a crisis worker. If that caller is calling and you feel confident as a stay well employee or as a crisis employee handling the call yourself, you can handle the call yourself. So there's 3 different ways that we can handle these calls. Is everybody following so far? I've got lots of information still following, so that's not it, I promise. So I'm going to share my screen. But before I do that, I'm going to kind of give you a little tutorial on Google Docs and the Google Drive. I know crisis staff, you utilize the Google Drive, you utilize fail-safes already. You know what those are. Stay well staff, this may be foreign to you, and that's why I'm going to just give a little brief explanation. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see? Just give me a head shake. Yes, if you can see my Google Drive, perfect. Okay, so on here, you're gonna see that I have like accreditation and boring stuff, right? But I also have this folder called Contact Center. So I'm gonna click on this folder called Contact Center, and then that's gonna open up a bunch of other folders, okay? So I'm gonna click on this crisis folder. Once I get to the crisis folder, it's also going to bring up a lot of other folders as well. And the one that I'm going to click on is number 1 here, this protocols/fail-safes. When I click on that, it brings me 3 different options: Lower Peninsula, Upper Peninsula, ACT, DBT list. And I want the Lower Peninsula. So in here, you're going to see all of our contacts or contracts for different CMHs that we have contracts with. So the one that we're talking about specifically today is this warm line contract that we're talking about, right? So we're going to click on warm line, and it's going to bring me 2 different files. The first file that we're going to go through is this document here. This is going to be like the protocols/fail-safes for this specific line. So if you're ever looking, like you get a call from this warm line and you're like, I don't really know what to do with it. Well, click on this and it will bring you the information that you're going to need, okay? So it kind of explains the counties that it covers. So there's 8 different counties that this warm line is going to cover. Sorry, I'm just going to let somebody else in. And it, like we said, it's going to be 24 hours a day. We also talked about how Ask Family Services would answer the line or staff the line from Monday through Friday from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. But they can be transferred to, I didn't put the phone number in yet, but I will do that for you. That will be there by tomorrow. There's going to be a phone number in here that you could transfer. It's a newly created cell phone number for Ask Family Services that you can transfer to at any time. Sorry, Susanna, you have a question or a comment?
I have a comment. Just so you guys know, you don't have to go step by step like that. You can just search for warm line failsafe and it'll take you right to it. Thank you.
So this skill that we have created for everyone, it's going to be, so if you're somebody that assigns skills and you're looking for who should have this skill, the skill name is Griffin Place _ and then SWMBH. And then this is the skill that all of the staff will have to be able to answer these calls. We're looking to collect these said information demographics from the callers. And then Erica's going to give us a breakdown of that form in just a few minutes. So we're looking to find out where the caller's calling from, what phone number, do they speak English, how many people are in the house, things like that. We're looking for very brief demographics as we're talking to this person or this family member or this household. So can you share this information that we're collecting? I guess if ISK was calling, if it's an ISK caller and they were looking for information, you could contact them. But really, we're not sharing this information with anyone besides really Ask Family Services. We are collecting this data to then share with SWMBH the number of callers that we're getting in on this line. So our role in these calls is to provide support for callers. So we're going to evaluate what are their needs. Are they in immediate crisis? Transfer to a crisis worker if you're not one already. If the caller's not in immediate crisis, again, we're going to warm transfer. We say warm, we know that they're only there body from 2 to 7, but even if you transfer that caller and they leave a voicemail, that's still considered a warm transfer for us in this situation. So how we're going to answer this phone line. We're going to answer this phone line by saying, Ask Family Services Peer Warm Line. How can we help you today? Simple, right? Again, same sort of things. If you're suspecting abuse of any sort, we would contact APS or CPS. And our clients could include any individual seeking assistance for themselves or someone else with them with behavioral health concerns and or with any concerns, COVID concerns, health concerns, anything really. We do the same sort of thing if we need a welfare check that everyone typically knows how to do. If you don't know how to do, again, these are calls that can be transferred to a crisis worker if you are unable to handle the call. So below on this list, these protocols, there's also numbers that we have for the other counties. So if you feel like you can't handle this call and it's in, let's say, Calhoun County, and you are not able to meet their needs, then you could transfer the call to one of these numbers below for whatever county that caller is calling from. So these are other emergency services for after hours for any of these callers. Any questions so far? Feel free to unmute yourself. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. So again, getting to the fail-safe, like Susanna indicated, you can search it, or you can just go through those, click to the next folders to get there individually. Emily, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, what if somebody calls with, you know, they're looking for testing or they're looking for the shots, whatever that's called, immunizations. What do we do with that call?
What are you doing with that call now if you get that?
For crisis, I haven't gotten one of those.
Okay, so you could transfer them. And Erica, are you handling any calls on Stay Well in regards to shots or vaccines or anything?
So not on like the Stay Well line, like when somebody presses 8 and they get routed to us, like none of our counselors would answer or provide that information. But the COVID hotline, we all share that number. So it would still be, you could transfer them to the COVID hotline. And then there's different prompts that people can go to for questions regarding like the vaccine or testing sites. And I can share that with you. It's just a Google Doc that shows the different options on the COVID-19 hotline. So I guess like in that situation, you could tell them like, if you have questions regarding the COVID vaccine, this is the number you can call for those questions. And then I would just let them know, like, listen to the prompts closely to make sure you get to where you're going, because there's a long list. Like there's probably like a minute long list for somebody to listen to.
Any other questions before Erica goes through the documentation piece?
Brett posted a question in. Oh,
All
go
right,
ahead, Brett.
Yeah, that's okay. I was hoping we could change the name of that, the failsafe, to make it the warm line failsafe or something, so it's consistent with the other documents, the other failsafes.
Sure.
And I was also wondering if we've contemplated how we prevent, let's say a call comes in on stay well, and let's say a call comes in on the warm line, and they say, I'm in crisis and I need help, and whoever is answering it doesn't feel comfortable answering a crisis call, and then transfers it to, let's say, the lifeline, and then we get it over to the lifeline, and then the lifeline person gets it, and then it's I'm in Battle Creek and I need assistance from CMH. I'm just anticipating that we could have a chain of transfers, and if we could establish a protocol, for lack of a better word, for before we start transferring, maybe we could hear them out a little bit rather than the knee-jerk transfer.
Well, and I think in the documentation piece, you'll notice that there's a spot for gathering information about what the caller is calling for. And so I would hope that all of you are great listeners, and I know that already. And so I feel like a majority of you would probably want to hear out a little bit of their story of why they're calling, to be able to transfer the call first. So we'll let Erica go through the documentation piece, and let's see if you still feel the same way after that, and maybe that will help explain a little bit more. Thank you, Brett.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
And I did share access to these documents with everyone, and I'm hoping that you've received them. So hopefully that's the case. If you have any problems pulling up any of these documents, please let us know so that we can make sure that you have this information.
Okay, so this is the documentation for the SWMBH line, this pink document. And once it's shared with you, you'll see your email will be reflected up top. Emily, this was actually, I was going through this, the skill assigned to staff for this line, they just put their name right here, correct?
So that's funny. I noticed that you did that, and I feel like that's perfect because it's just a good way of tracking how the calls were all handled. Initially, when we talked about documentation, we had talked about how we would like to have what skill the call came in on. So if it comes in on a different line, I guess you would also want to indicate that on this line too. But yeah, I think putting in your name is fine.
Okay, perfect. And then, so this document will be really similar, like pieces of it will be similar to iCarol, and then piece of it will be similar to Stay Well documentation. It's very simple, but the demographic information is really similar to Stay Well. So county of service, you would just click here. So similar to other calls that you handle before hanging up or before transferring them, just letting them know, like, I have a few demographic questions I'd like to ask you before I get you transferred over to the SWMBH line. They're confidential questions. I just need it for our, for our center or for our documentation. So you would just click here, whatever county they're calling from. Kalamazoo will be listed in here. It's just not listed at this moment. So you can click that. And then whatever zip code the caller is calling from, the phone number of the caller, I would ask the caller what their phone number is, and not go off the phone number that's listed in contact, because if they leave a voicemail, like let's say they don't talk to somebody, if they end up leaving a voicemail, we want to just make sure whatever number that worker is calling them back on is the correct number. So just asking, if somebody were to call you back, what number are you best reached at? So putting that here. And then employee taking the call, you can put your name again here. And then how many people did you talk to? So usually we talk to just one person on our lines, but there is the occasional, like there's two people, one person in the background. So if you did talk to more than one person, you could put that here. And how many people did you provide service for? So again, did you talk to more than one person? And because it is a family warm line, I think we're just anticipating that maybe somebody who's calling in might have a few people around them, or they might be requesting services for more than just themselves because it's a family warm line. So just want to capture that. And then duration or length of call, you know, how long did you talk with them? You can find that in contact. It'll say on your soft phone the duration of the call. Primary language spoken, you just type in there whatever language was spoken. And then brief narrative. So this is where it's more similar to iCarol. If you talk to this caller, it was straightforward, you got demographic information, you got them over to the warm line, you could just put that here. You don't have to I guess be super detailed, but let's say you did talk to them, they were experiencing distress or a crisis. You can indicate what you talked about and how you helped them. So what was the end result of that conversation? So just give information on, like, you know, what were they calling in for? What were they struggling with? And then how were you able to help them in that, you know, through the call? And then the last question here is, how is the call resolved? So if it was transferred to Ask Warm Line, like kind of the intention of the line was just handled, the call was transferred, you'd click the first one here, call transferred to Griffin Place crisis worker to immediate danger. So if this call was transferred to Helpline or Lifeline, that's where we would indicate that here. Call was resolved while talking with the staff. So let's say they call in, you feel that they need to talk to somebody right now, you talk with them, they de-escalate, they feel better, they're able to move on with their day, they don't necessarily want to be transferred to the warm line, then the call is resolved by you. And so you can indicate that here. Unknown, unavailable. I'll come back to that one. And then call dropped, attempted callback. So as you know, our calls sometimes drop. We don't know if it's the caller, we don't know if it's us. So if you don't know if the call is dropped, you don't know on whose end that happened, just attempt calling back once, just like how we would in, you know, on our other lines, and indicate that here. So then Emily, this unknown unavailable, is that if you try to call them back and they didn't pick up?
So I see that one being utilized for maybe this caller gets mad at you and they hang up, and you know that they got mad at you and hung up. You can mark it as unknown unavailable. Do you have to call them back if you know that they're mad and they hung up on purpose? No. So you don't need to attempt to call back if that's the situation. So that's how I see it being utilized differently between those two.
And then you just hit submit, and the form is you've completed documentation. Brett, you had a question, sorry.
Yeah, can you scroll back to where you were? One, are we going to have a protocol in place for whether you transfer it to Helpline or whether you transfer it to Lifeline? Is that going to be Helpline only if it's Kalamazoo County and the other counties get Lifeline? And part B is, are we going to attempt a callback on every hang up, every wrong number? I mean, because otherwise we're, because on Helpline and Lifeline, we get a fair, even on the CMHs, we get a reasonable number of hang ups, you know, before we answer or just as we're answering.
Right.
And Some of them, you know what's going on because it's a regular and they don't want to talk to a guy, they want to talk to a female. Some of them, it's the wrong number. You know, it's a call from Arkansas, or a telemarketer. Are we going to call all these back?
I think that's a great question. And I would say do what you do now. So if it's a call that drops before you even get your greeting out, no callback is needed. If you've been talking to them, you've been gathering information, and then the call drops, then I feel like it's fair to say that they obviously wanted to talk to you, they wanted to give you information, but for some reason, due to technical difficulties, that call dropped. So please give them a call back.
Thanks.
And in regards to the helpline, lifeline, I can add that if you would feel like that would clarify some information, especially for Staywell staff who maybe this is brand new on what calls go to which staff, or which calls go to which line. So yes, I can add that to the fail-safe as well. Can anybody think of any other questions?
Yeah, this is Dalton from the Staywell side. So how about dealing with regular callers that we deal with a lot of regular callers that just want to talk like nonchalantly on the Staywell side. And we usually direct them to either like the warm line, like the general warm line, or whatever it may be. How would we go about those? I mean, we have a couple callers that literally call in like 10 plus times a day just to talk about, you know, random conversation.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of what this line is being created for, Dalton. So I think that's a great question. And Ask Family Services is also receiving part of this same grant money to be that person that sits and listens to them for however long they need someone to talk to. So please, in that situation, even if they call twice a night, let them know that the purpose of this line is to kind of hear and evaluate where they're at tonight. And then Ask Family Services will get back to them if it's not between the hours of 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. to just chat about anything that they need to chat about.
Okay.
Does that answer that?
Yep. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Yes. I don't know who was next, but I saw Marissa, you had a question in the chat. I think it was about time restrictions, maybe. I'm just going to pull it up. Sorry. Well, we have time limits on this line. There's not going to be time limits. So we don't have a specific time limit. If you feel like there's other calls sitting in the queue that you could better utilize your time for, this is not someone's not in immediate danger, please transfer them to that Ask Family Warm line number so that they can continue on that call and hopefully get the help that they need through that service. And then again, I at this moment can see 3 hands and I don't know who was first, so please just feel free to shout out.
Emily, if they get a call and then they are transferring it to, like, we'll say Lifeline, are they documenting it in iCarol then for Lifeline and this? Are they documenting it just to iCarol? How are we documenting when it's a transfer situation?
So if a Lifeline employee, staff member receives the call, they're going to document it in iCarol just as they would if the call came in directly to Lifeline. And the person that originally answered the call is also going to be documenting that they transferred it to a crisis worker if they're not a crisis worker already. So it is going to get documented in 2 different places, by the original person that answered the call, and if they transfer it to Helpline or Lifeline and that employee then takes the call, then it's going to be documented in iCarol.
If you're a crisis worker and you get the call, are you just documenting it in this then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
And to add to that a little bit too, I think it's going to be really similar to our, like the Stay Well line now, where you will be able to talk with this person and de-escalate if they are experiencing a crisis and they need to talk to somebody. So the reasons why you would transfer is if they are having thoughts of suicide and they're sharing that with you, and they are comfortable being transferred to a crisis worker. If they're not comfortable being transferred, then asking somebody on Slack, asking a crisis worker or team lead to jump on the call with you to help provide you guidance with that call, to make sure, you know, the person is safe. So I don't think that it's going to be like a routine, I guess, practice that we would just transfer them to the lifeline or helpline. We would first, like Brett was mentioning earlier, there could be, it's not very helpful for a caller to continuously be transferred. So just trying our best to figure out what this caller needs, how we can help them, and helping de-escalate in that moment as best we can.
For overnights, because we don't have obviously a stay well person, so is this just going to be handled kind of like we would normally do, like helpline, lifeline kind of thing, as we're just going to kind of round robin between the four of us that are working?
So everyone will have this skill that's working third shift that is a crisis worker. So if it's just a 211 staff, not just, but if all they answer is 211 calls, they're not going to be in the know of how to fill out this document or what to do with that call. So this will fall on crisis workers that are working third shift. Just to ease your mind, there has been talk of finding a stay well worker, content, for a third shift as well. So hopefully we can get some extra hands on this as well. Again, like we mentioned in the beginning, can't imagine this line is going to be well known. So it can't imagine that this is going to impact too many people in the very first few weeks that we're operating this line. We're hoping that the word gets out there and that it gets busier, because we do have the money to answer these calls, but hoping that it doesn't impact a lot at the beginning. But yes, Robert, according to your question, or to answer your question, every crisis worker that's working third shift will be able to have the skill and just kind of round robin on, I'm not sure how those calls even get routed to who, when. That's all in context knowledge.
And then will we just use this document for, instead of iCarol, we would just use this document?
Yes.
Yeah, if a call comes in on this specific Griffin Place _SWMBH line, it just gets documented on this for a crisis worker. Josh, did you have a question, or Emily, one of you, I see? Sorry.
Sorry. So I guess I'm just trying to anticipate like a call or like a question from a caller, right? So how is what Ask is going to be doing different than what we're doing? Like what's different about what they're going to be getting from Ask versus what, you know, I can imagine somebody just being like, well, can't I just talk to you? Like, you know, you're on the phone. I might not have a problem tomorrow at 2 p.m. when they start answering the phone. So how would we sort of handle that situation?
So Ask's job is to just be another listening ear. So what they're doing might not be any different, but they may be able to connect them with services within their direct services. So Ask Family Services has family groups and support that they're able to offer to these callers. So they have the resources that they're able to dish out, versus us, where we're just the listening ear, right? So we want to give them a warm ear to listen, but they are also able to provide resources at the end. Go for it, Josh.
So, can you hear me? I've been having issues with my headset.
Yep, we got you.
Okay, cool. So I guess I kind of want to piggyback what other people have asked, but kind of more specific. So there's no timelines. So if someone such as BB gets his hands on this line, are we gonna tell him we're not taking the, or not meanly, but we're gonna kind of hang up on him, tell him to call back on helpline, or are we gonna let him have another line to call on? Or, you know, let's say Keith, who lives on the east side of the state, but he knows how to get into helpline because he does that all the time. What are we going to do with that? I guess that's kind of my question. Like, what's going to be the protocol on those frequent callers that tend to find all the new lines?
So unfortunately, it is another option for them to call in on, right? So it just, I get that there could be frustrations with that, but that's kind of the purpose of these services, is to provide support and a listening ear to those that want to talk. So if, you know, somebody's calling from another state, obviously this is not the service for them, and hopefully they don't get access to this line, but unfortunately phone numbers get out there, right? So if we can try and keep it as knowledgeable and fact driven as we can in the call by saying, you know, the purpose of this line is to provide support for family services, for a listening ear if you have any struggles in regards to COVID or any other resources that you or your family needs because of a health concern, or need a listening ear. Ask Family Services is where I would need to direct you to. And so at the end of this call, I'm going to transfer you to Ask Family Services, and then Ask Family Services will then have to come up with a protocol for how to handle those continuous calls.
And going off that too, there is a script that you'll be provided with that has all of the information on what you can tell people who call into the line. So like Emily was saying, like getting clear with them on, you know, what the purpose of Ask Family Services warm line, like what they can provide. You'll have a script for that. So if any questions arise, or basically as you kind of want to like transfer them over, it just makes the process easier having like a script with information to give them. And you're not like, okay, bye, I'm transferring you. So I think that will be helpful. And when Emily goes over the script, I think it will kind of put everything together of how, yeah, basically just how everything comes together.
Destiny, did you have a question?
I do. So kind of going off of Dalton's question earlier regarding the Stay Well line, with those callers that we have regularly that call on the Stay Well line, relationship problems or like anxiety in general, would we direct them to this new line, or would we just continue it on the Stay Well line?
That's a good question, Destiny. And you would continue talking with them on the Stay Well line, and providing them with that support there. So this line has that specific skill, that SWMBH skill. So you would just use all of like the protocols and the documentation and the script for SWMBH whenever it comes in on this line, and then Stay Well would continue to be separate. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
When will the script be ready?
Erica, is that a question for you?
Well, I thought the script was already made, Emily.
I don't know what she's talking about. I sent her a message as we're sitting in this.
Really? Oh, I thought we had a script for everybody.
Is the script going to be ready before we start doing it?
Erica's going to come up with it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I will see what I can put together for this script that Erica.
Maybe I was thinking of the script that Ask needed.
Yeah, Ask did come up with a script of what their voicemail is going to look like, but that is the only script that's been drafted. But if you all would like a script with more details, I can gladly come up with anything that you.
Yeah, so can I. Yeah, I'll get that going.
So we can work on that.
I'm sorry. I thought we had it.
Okay, so to be clear and to kind of wrap things together, this line will start November 1st on Monday at 8 a.m. So that's kind of when it's going live. We're going to assign this skill to everyone. As calls come in, if you have any questions at any time, please reach out to any of us. They're going to be documented on this form that Eric has gone over with a few minor tweaks, just a couple of things added as we've looked at it over and over again. I think we've noticed a couple more things we need to add or input to it. And then also that fail-safe protocol, I'll make sure that the phone number is in there as well. But also on this document, this form here, it also gives you the phone number at the bottom of here. Emily, I saw a comment, I think maybe